Good morning. So, welcome on this Saturday morning. Today, I wanted to talk about the pause that we've all been in. So, we've all been on a mandated pause by the governor of New York. Then we've also been in a pause in our lives, right? I've been thinking a lot about this week. I think what prompted it is some colleagues were on our Zen Teachers Forum. We're talking about how to do sesshin through Zoom or online, any platform. And sesshin is such a fundamental part of our practice. And for some reason right now, it's, not for some reason, for obvious reasons, it's not as available to us as it usually is. So sesshin is, for those of you who haven't done sesshin, it's a time of usually 5 to 7 days of very intensive practice where we do zazen all day long. And we get up early, we sit, we do some chanting, we eat, we clean, we sit some more. In between, we walk, we eat, continue throughout the day until the evening. And then we sleep, and then we wake up again the next day and do that again. Usually there's a work period, and there's also a time for a Dharma talk in the middle of it. And it's a time of intense concentration for us. And we have this obviously in our daily zazen practice, for however long we sit, whether it's 40 minutes or an hour or 30 minutes. We have this daily, but when we have it over the course of half a day, a whole day, 5 days, 7 days, even 90 days, and a lifetime, then it really accentuates the learning that's available through silence. And one thing that it really teaches us is that what we have to work with isn't going anywhere. I don't know how many of you here have done a sesshin, at least one sesshin before. So as we sit, initially there's some excitement or some maybe trepidation or even fear. What's going to happen? Oh my goodness. And then, I've sat at least 100 of these, maybe more. There's a familiar trajectory that develops, which is, about the second day in, this is the greatest thing ever. And then towards the end of the second day, I'm going to die. My body's in so much pain. I can't do this. And then somewhere in there, a kind of a boredom comes in. It's not exactly, sometimes it is just pure boredom, but it's more like a resignment. And then we just do it. And it comes and goes. It's not like it stays. But we're here. We signed up to be here. We're going to be here. We have no intention of going home, especially for those of us for whom our home is the temple. There's no home to go to. What are we going to do to go to our room? We can't. So you're in this. You've made a commitment, and you're in this. And yeah, it's hard. But we've made this commitment. We're going to do it because we understand the value of it. By the time we do this, we trust somehow that this has value. Either through our own practice, we trust that our mind has begun to quiet and we see the spaciousness coming in, or we see examples of people who have done this over many years, or we've tried it enough that we have a curiosity and we want to see what it's all about. Whatever reason brought us there, it stops to be important after a while, and we just stay. And as we stay, we can start to see our minds tell the same stories over and over and over. And, usually it's something unpleasant, the story that repeats. It's that time in the third grade when I said that mean thing to that girl and it didn't go very well. And then the rest of the year was awful. Or that time I had an argument with my boss in front of the whole office, and I got some kind of penalty for that. These things, that time that I did something that didn't go the way I intended, or that person did something to me that I didn't like, and it's just we start repeating them, and it's like a movie that goes on in our heads while we're trying to sit still, let go of our thoughts. There's some thoughts that are just very persistent. And after a while, they get kind of boring. They're still there, but all right, okay, I know the outcome of this one. Still here. Okay, I've seen this one before. And after a while, we start to get to where we can just, okay, that sucked. That was a terrible time. I was very hurt. I can be tender towards that, but I don't have to think about it. It just becomes more of a feeling than an obsession. And I was thinking of that a lot this week because of where we are now in our society. So I thought, okay, if I were in the monastery right now, and I was actually in the monastery during the swine flu epidemic, and I didn't notice it. It's like I feel like I was actually, I was in Asia during swine flu, and it didn't really have an effect on my life because my life was exactly the same then as it is every other day. Which is, we get up, we sit, we practice, we work, we eat, we go to bed. And so if I were in the monastery now, sesshin is just like every other day. And sesshin is just what we do. But the thing is, our whole society is in a kind of sesshin right now because of this intentional pause. And what it's doing for us is it's both accentuating the things we don't like, those old stories that keep repeating and repeating and repeating. And it's also, it's teaching us about patience, whether we wanted to or not. It's accentuating the things that we have to work with, not just personally, definitely personally. Our old fears, our anxieties, our worries, our blame, our stress, whatever it is, our anger. It's accentuating that, but it's accentuating it for our entire society. The divisions in our society were already here and, sometimes simmering, sometimes flaring, are now right in our face. Every single thing is right in our face. And in Buddhist practice, we do this on purpose. We intentionally bring things into sharp focus. We intentionally pause and are still. We intentionally contemplate our own death. Why? In terms of contemplating our own death, to understand what's most important to us, to cultivate patience, to cultivate the ability to see the arising and falling of all things clearly. And so now we have this whole society of a pause going on. And you know what? We hate it. We're like in that day of sesshin that's a pure torture. We're like, I can't stand this anymore. I'll do anything to get out of it. I just, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to take that stick and I'm going to hit that Zen teacher and I'm going to sneak out and I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to leave. Where are we going to go? We're going to go right back to our old crap. There it is, still waiting for us. So we have this pause that society has imposed on us, or maybe the earth has imposed on us, the very nature of the universe. And we tell ourselves that we're Zen practitioners and that we want this. But when it really comes to our door, we're like, well, I wanted this, but just that 1 hour on Saturday mornings, that was enough for me. I don't want any more than that. Just that little, that week of sesshin, that I don't want more. Do we really want this? And we don't have a choice. Life and death is always right in our face. It's just we numb ourselves to that fact most of the time. And now we can't. We can't do it because it's too present. It's too up. We have only one choice right now, and that's to stay present and to go straight through it. That's it. We can't go backwards. We can't skip ahead. We have to be in it. There's no other option. And that is always our only option. But this moment in time allows us to see that in sharp focus. We have to be here. How are we going to do that? So that's why I wanted to talk about patience today. So that pause is really about patience. How do we cultivate patience? How do we cultivate a sense of, okay, this is what I have to work with in this life. I'm going to do it. I've been watching, like everybody, I've been watching the people who want this to be over and want to go backwards. And so there are people who are, as you all know, who are protesting the virus, basically. They're protesting the effects of the virus, which is to shut down. And it's very unpleasant. It's really, it feels, we can feel afraid. What are you doing? Don't do that. You're making it worse for all of us. And then, there's such anger that goes with it. That's very uncomfortable to stay present to and to cultivate loving kindness towards. But I really, when I saw it, I had this moment where I finally could start to understand that what we have to work with now, this sickness, which could cause death and certainly causes fear, causes the loss of our life purpose, is here. So I started to understand the wish to go backwards. We want to go back to the way it was when we didn't have to think of it so clearly. We want to go back. And I think that's a lot of what the protests are about. This is so unpleasant and so uncomfortable. Can we please just go back to the way things were before this was so uncomfortable? And there's a desperation in there, right? There's such a need. Please. And the other thing that we tend to do is we want to skip ahead. Okay, this has happened. This is long enough. I just want it to be over. I don't want this to be here. So can I just skip ahead by, a year or so when things are back to a level that I can take? Whatever that is. We don't know what that year is, but we want to pass it. And as I thought of this, and of course that's what we're doing always, when we're sitting, we're either pulled into the past or thinking ahead about the future, when the only thing that truly exists is this moment, right here, right now. Even the past is a construct of our mind. And where's our mind? Right here. The future is where? It's right here. Future is an idea that we create to try to make some stability when there's none. And the sooner we recognize that there's nothing to hang on to, we can exhale and just be present to it. So actually, the arising and falling, the nature of change, is always with us. But because sometimes we find that unpleasant or uncomfortable, we want to create the delusion that we can control that or that we can have a sense of an outcome. We don't. We don't even know the outcome of 5 minutes from now, much less 5 days from now or 5 years from now. We have this thought, they should just pick a date when this is all over. Like, what are they going to do? Wave a magic wand, it's all over, and then what? Do we really want to go back to the way we were? Because we were suffering. Our country we're really fighting with each other. We're not kind. As a whole country. Is that something we want to go back to? And you know what else? We're not treating our physical environment. We're not treating the earth very well. And that's so accentuated right now. I read in the paper last night, sometime yesterday, that they don't know for sure, but they're doing research that seems to indicate that the virus actually attaches to particles of pollution and is spread further by pollution. We did this. We created the conditions, the causes and conditions that allow the virus to spread. We also have to create the causes and conditions to let it settle, to be present to it, and to learn. What does it have to teach us? I was reminded of I like those Hayao Miyazaki movies, which are Japanese. Some of you may have seen some of them, like Spirited Away or My Neighbor Totoro. They're cartoons. They're very thoughtful cartoons. They usually have an environmental focus by this Japanese director. And there's one, I don't know if we have it in English, but in Japanese, I think it's Pompoko. So there are these creatures in Japan. They're actual animals, and then they have both the actual animal and the mythical animal, and they're called tanukis, which is a really fun word to say. And the way that their name sounds, tanuki, also fits sort of with their character. They're in reality, they're kind of a badger. They have really large rumps, and they look a little bit like a raccoon in the inverse. We don't have them here in the States. In the mythical side, they are creatures that really love to laugh and joke and to drink alcohol and to dance, and they're very fun-loving creatures. And they have things they can do. They live in the forest. They can have different qualities, like they can shapeshift, and so that's the mythical side of them. So in the movie, the humans start to encroach upon the animal world, the forest. So you see urban sprawl happening. And the cities just, they're subdivisions, and then they cut down more trees, and they make more subdivisions, and they concrete over the rivers, and the cities just keep growing, and the human world starts to get bigger and bigger. But the thing is, that's the tanuki's home, right? So they tolerate it, and then finally their home is in danger. So they convene a gathering of the tanukis, and they're like, all right, this is an all tanuki gathering. They meet in the forest, of course, and they have this big conference, and they split into 3 factions. There are the Tanukis who are going to go to the Pure Land, which is they're going to go off into heaven or the future or wherever, and they get on their boat and they sail off into the sky. They're the Tanukis who decide to fight the humans, and they make like a war council. And then they're the Tanukis who decide to adapt, and they're not sure how they're going to do it, but they start to learn. So they go into the cities, and I want to talk about the adapting Tanukis. They go into the cities and they watch. How are those humans getting their food? And they see them use these pieces of paper, to get some food. How do we get that paper? And they're not quite sure, like they try to just take the food once. And, of course, the old woman selling the buns is like, bad Tanuki, you stole my food. And they're like, okay, that wasn't right. So let me try something else. So they study and then they notice that the foxes have already figured this out. And so then they ask the foxes for advice. All right, y'all, foxes, how did you do this? And the foxes are like, well, we shapeshift into humans. And then we put on human clothes and we go to work. And then they give us the pieces of paper and then we get food. Right? So they learned. Did they like their situation? No. And the Tanukis have a hard time shape-shifting in the beginning. They have to really learn it. And sometimes they're walking down the sidewalk and bink, they turn right back into a Tanuki and everybody's like, why is it wearing a suit? That's not right. But they learn over time. So they don't exactly accept the human encroachment. They still have this, no, it's not okay. But they also adapt to the situation they have to work with. And that's what we have to do. We have to adapt to the situation right in front of us. It's a new situation. We haven't been through this before. Research indicates that it might happen again. It will likely happen again. So it's best to learn how to do it. Let's shapeshift. How can we be present with this virus in a way that's sustainable for the future, in a way that creates kindness, in a way that invests in other humans and other animals and the trees and everybody around us as a whole? And the way that we do this is cultivating patience and that pause. So I want to encourage you, when you're feeling really inflamed, just take a breath. This is what I have to work with right now. My God, I'm freaking out. Just try 10 seconds. Just that. And then see what's coming up. And I think what you'll find is, when we're in a state of high anxiety, we can feel like trapped and, scared. But when we put in that pause, it gives our minds a chance to settle just a little bit so that what we need to do is more clear to us. This gives us a chance to see right in our face our patterns of behavior that are unhealthy, our societal patterns of behavior that are unhealthy, our personal patterns that are unhealthy. It gives us a chance to work with it. With support, we have each other for support. But what happens when we see things like this so closely? A lot of times we don't like it. I don't like myself when I'm under stress. I don't like myself when I'm angry at people. So the opposite of patience is actually anger. We see things that we don't like, but they're here. So let's be with it. Let's figure it out. Let's get advice. Let's support each other. Let's work together so that we can meet what this offers us. So again, we don't have a way around it. We have to go through it. I've shared with you that I've had the virus in my body, and so it's a very unpleasant experience. I'll report back. And there's only one way to meet it, which is to go straight through it. I can't wish it away. I took all kinds of wellness formula and vitamins, and did that help? I don't know. It didn't make it go away though. The only way is to go through. And now that I'm almost through it, I feel like I've learned something so profound that I can't even articulate yet in my body, like it all the way to my cells, and really have this deep understanding of what this is and what this is teaching us. Today I had so many things I wanted to say, but I'm going to just say one more final thing. The thing we're really facing is grief. And I think that's what so many people are not acknowledging. Whether that grief comes out in fear, in numbing behaviors, pretending that this isn't here, or manifesting in anger towards others, or just shutting down. We see all kinds of on social media, all kinds of memes about drinking a lot, which they're funny, but it's a kind of numbing. What we have is grief, and this isn't something that we're good at dealing with. And right now, we have no choice. We must be present to it. The grief of loss of our jobs, for those who have lost our jobs, for those of us who had dreams of what we're going to do this year, the loss of our plans or our dreams, the loss of our maybe faults, but still the loss of our feelings of stability, the loss of our way of life. All of this is grief. And there's no way around it. We have to meet it and go through it, because fear is so much more expensive than grief. Fear gets us nothing. It just costs us, and it just keeps spending and spending and spending. Grief is rich. Grief teaches us the preciousness of human life. It teaches us how to open our hearts, teaches us tenderness. Grief teaches us kindness for others. Whose heart has not broken at least once during this crisis? If not hundreds of times, maybe even hundreds of times a day. And this is how we connect. Last night I was watching the news and saw a segment of I think it was right? 5 people who have died, and a little bit about their life. This person was a mom. She enjoyed this. This person was an advocate for Indigenous rights, and she was considered a fierce protector. This person drove a bus, really enjoyed that. I just felt so much appreciation for them, so much tenderness for their families, and so much grief in my own body. And it really made me connect rather than checking out. This is the way we get through it: showing up, staying connected, acknowledging, the sadness. And we can talk about our grief with each other. We can do ceremonies for it, but we can't escape it. So let's do this together. Let's get through. Let's go through. Let's go through in a way that makes us richer human beings. Let's get through in a way that makes the world a better place for everyone, makes us the planet safer and more cared for. Let's get through in a way that we can learn whatever we need to learn. 'Cause it's here anyway. So we can meet it wholeheartedly and fully. We don't have any other options. So that's what I wanted to say today. Thank you for listening.